The Olympics are an overrated, dried out, corporatized circle jerk that none of you should bother spending any money or attention on. And here's why, because not only is it being hosted this year in the same country as it was hosted only 14 years ago, a country which does not deserve to host it at all because of its god-awful human rights track record, but also is being hosted in the same exact city. Like, what exactly was the IOC thinking here? It's just such a stupid and dull and just awful decision in general, and apparently the only other country that offered to host it was Kazakhstan. And, that got mothballed pretty quickly. And frankly, it's easy to see why, because you can look at documentaries about this. For example, the 2016 Olympics, all the stadiums that they built there for all the events that they hosted, they're basically just standing there and rotting away. They even, put fences around them so people don't see, the awful condition that they're in. Because the government doesn't really care about maintaining them after, the event actually ended. Maybe they don't care, maybe they can't afford to maintain them, but either way, it's just not really profitable anymore for countries to host the Olympics. And you know why? Because the Olympics simply just don't have that vibe to them anymore. I remember, 2012, 2016 Olympics, those had a pretty cool opening ceremony, and just the whole event was a cool competition sort of thing. And that's what the Olympics were always intended to be, and what they've always been until recently. Because at this point, there's actually a lot of studies on this. It's really just a giant circle jerk for people to be like, hey guys, look, it's a bunch of random people running around and doing sports and stuff, and here is our billions of dollars in sponsorship money. And basically none of that is going to go to the actual athletes. And that's actually a huge problem that you can read up about. Occasionally you do have your, Michael Phelps's or Gabby Douglas's of the Olympics. People that actually end up becoming famous. But that is such a tiny percentage. Most Olympic athletes, if you think about it, if you watch the Olympics on TV and you see some person, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. No, because these athletes, they're not really famous in any way. They go on the Olympics. If they're lucky, they'll win a medal. They go home and that's it. And not only that, but again, these athletes basically don't get paid anything if they're not famous. And it's actually really awful because they're basically just wasting all this time and energy preparing and training and everything only to get, quite literally, 15 seconds of fame and no monetary gain from it. While the CEOs and all the investors and celebrities, oh hell yeah, they're getting money from this whole thing. The governments as well, but nobody else. Nobody that actually makes the Olympics into what it is makes any sort of money from it unless they get famous. And that's kind of ridiculous because even, the NFL, the NHL, NBA, all of those, leagues, and that's exclusive to America, but even FIFA athletes make good amounts of money. But in the Olympics, they don't. And, I just don't understand how that kind of stuff is allowed to happen. It just goes to show that the whole event has become not about the athletes, but about the corporations that back it. And that's pretty obnoxious in my opinion. And on top of that, there's just something about the Olympics in general that has gotten really just boring and repetitive to the point that, I don't really care to watch them anymore because it's the same thing over and over and over again. And the opening ceremonies are also not that interesting anymore because, honestly, 2016 was, the last somewhat good one. Everything after that, just complete, basically dull, I don't want to say garbage because that's kind of an exaggeration, but basically not very high quality content. And, something has to really be done about this to make it actually an event that's worth watching again. Maybe we can reshuffle the types of events that are being shown. Maybe we can break up the Olympics into a bunch of separate competitions on their own. There's something that needs to be done about this. And I'm not really an expert on this, but I'm sure somebody can figure it out because the way it stands right now, the Olympics just are not really working. And frankly, it kind of sucks that this is the way that it's gotten. And I hope that eventually we can do something to make the Olympics, have that Olympic feeling to them again. And yeah, guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button. As always, this is your captain speaking. Peace out.